Join me right now on Kumite TV is UFC lightweight newcomer Joe Solecki. What's going on, Joe?
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be on here with you.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Now, I want to jump in first with the Fight Game Season 1, Episode 1. I really enjoyed that, filming that in the lead up to your Contender Series fight. How phenomenal was it to get that type of exposure and being able to document your life?
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool. It was funny how I linked up with, Andrew Faherty, the creator of it. Was just at a jiu-jitsu tournament that I was doing, like a super fight for charity. And we ended up just talking through an interview. And because it was so noisy at the event, the interview kind of got ruined. It never came out or anything. It was just like a 2-second thing. And he ended up messaging me, finding out more about my story, and was asking if I'd be interested. And at the time, I didn't have the Contender Series fight. And I didn't want to do it because I didn't feel like I was somebody worth covering. And then I said yes to it just because I really liked him from the impression I got. But it was just kind of a weird, mix of fates that I got the Contender Series. I got to have that documented, which is pretty cool. And it was a little bit of pressure just because obviously I don't want to document a thing that I end up losing. But I just said to myself, like, if nothing else, I'll have this to show my kids what I was pursuing with my life when, one day when they're here, God willing. So I was just using it like that. It's a cool way it'll be a cool thing to have, show my kids, grandkids, anything like that. Just so they don't have to go by my stories. They can just see for themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of great tidbits from that episode. One of the things that stood out is from the age of 6 to 16, you're saying that you did not have much success on the jiu-jitsu circuit. What kept you from just leaving that behind and moving on to something else?
I don't know. I have a couple guesses, but one, I was just obsessed. Like, it's funny. I was watching this movie yesterday, Searching for Bobby Fischer. It's from like 1993, but about Josh Waitzkin, who's now Marcelo Garcia black belt. But he was a chess prodigy, and my instructor John Hassett would always drop me little tidbits like that. Like, he told me about that movie when I was like 10. and was like, you should watch that. And then he would talk so highly about the kid in the movie, Josh Waitzkin, about how he's so obsessed and dedicated and all these things. And I really think it was things like that where he would tell me things like that. Or another thing he would do, for instance, I was actually talking to him yesterday. There was this highlight of this kid who used to be a great kid and teens competitor. And now he went on to play professional golf or something. But he was an absolute monster when I was a kid. We were the same age. And he would show me his highlight. Like, how do you think you would do with him? Like, if the answer's not good, then you need to work harder. So I think he almost without meaning to, or maybe he did mean to, you'd have to ask him, but it was almost like I was just programmed and brainwashed to be obsessed, So the other thing that I say is just, I was in the adult class at age 8 or 9. So the guys were all my friends. So it was when school would get tough or life would get tough, I had them and they would treat me with respect like one of the adults. So I think I was just hooked to the atmosphere too, Hass's Jiu-Jitsu in a little town, Sewell, New Jersey. It's just a really special vibe when you walk in there. And if I was somewhere else, maybe I would have quit. I just had great people around me.
Another thing from that is when your wife was talking about you going to the restaurant and eating a salad and an elk burger a few times a week. What's more amazing, her not realizing that you're doing this or you continuing with that diet?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a toss-up. But, if you ask me, I would tell you that it was super obvious that I was really into her, But if you ask her, it was completely, she was oblivious because I wasn't sending out the right signs because I'm super shy. She's probably dead on. I'm pretty socially awkward, outside of the fight world. I love to talk fighting. I love to meet people through fighting. But, man, when it came to, talking to women or anything like that, I'm a dud with that. So she's probably right on that end. But, yeah, shout out to that place because it was really hard to get wild game, to eat. So Ronnie from Longbeards, the restaurant no longer is open, but he's still a great friend of mine. And, he kind of inadvertently introduced me and my wife. So, yeah, it was good times, and it's a fun little story, too.
Yeah, I love that story, man. Now, the Contender Series, you go in there, you face Justin Wallace, a guy a lot of people are high on. I think you surprised a lot of people by how quickly and easily you finished him. Was that a signature Joe Solecki performance, do you think?
yes and no. You know, I don't want to ever set the bar too high like that. Not because I'm not confident, but you know, the UFC is the pinnacle of the sport, and there's not going to be easy fights where, you know, there is probably guys that I can go in there and submit in the first round, but I never want to put that in my head that that's my game plan or anything like that. You know, I always plan, and I say this every time, and it sounds cliche, but it's true. You know, fighting's unlike anything else. So it's funny. I don't, you know, not a knock on anybody that does, but I don't deal with like sports psychologists or anything like that because it's funny. Whenever you talk to one of them just in passing, they'll tell you you need to visualize positivity and see things going your way and all this stuff. But the hard thing about fighting is it's not you versus you. There's someone else there. So I always envision the worst. I always envision an absolute war, a fight of the night, you know, me having to go through the most adversity. And so, you know, that being said, I do have, you know, 7 first-round finishes. So I guess that kind of is a signature, but those are all kind of regional fights, even the Contender Series. So I really can't tell you what I'm going to be like in the UFC, but I know that I'm going to do everything it takes to get the win, you know. But hopefully they keep going like that, and I think that would spell maybe some performance of the night bonuses too. So hopefully it all goes like that. But I'm ready for, you know, anything to be, you know, what it is.
Yeah, that extra cash would be lovely, you know, at the end of the day. Now, I saw that you said you're looking to make your debut in Boston or at Madison Square Garden, you know, but you landed on Washington, D.C. Were those locations ever discussed with the UFC?
Yeah, so originally I was told, my manager was told, you know, to be ready for October and November, and I was looking at all the weekends they had, but originally it was Boston or Madison Square Garden were the two. But I was really excited when they said Washington, D.C., because, you know, it's very close, driving and flying distance. So I have a lot of people coming out. It's kind of halfway home between New Jersey, where I'm from, and where I live now in North Carolina. So we got a lot of people driving up, a lot of family. My grandfather's going to be able to come. My dad's going to be in the crowd for the first time ever for a fight of mine. So it's going to mean a lot to me to be so close to home. You know, even though I'm not from Washington, D.C., I'm probably one of the few on the card, other than maybe like Mickey Gall or a few others, where it's kind of like a hometown fight because it is so close to both places that I have roots in. So it was better, and it was more time to get better, you know. Not that I didn't think I was ready coming off the Contender Series, but it's been almost half a year by the time I step in that cage. You know, it was, there's nothing bad about that especially when you're as young as I am, is every month I think I'm a different fighter from before, and I'm maturing and learning. So to have 5 full months from fight night to fight night is absolute blessing because I get to, you know, just get better and grow.
Yeah, I think it's a huge advantage for you to be fighting so close to home because there's a lot of guys that get signed to the UFC and then the UFC flies them across the world to some like location that they've never been to, which can kind of, I guess, downgrade their performance in many ways, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's cool to see the world through fighting, and, you know, that is a perk of the job. But so early on, you know, it's my first time on the UFC and things like that. I just want to get in there and get a win. You know, if it could be here in Wilmington, North Carolina, that'd be fine. I don't need to see somewhere new. If I do my job and I win fights, I'll be able to make a living to go to those places on my own, you know. So down the line when I'm comfortable and I've done a couple fight weeks, that'd be great. But, yeah, I was hoping not to be on like in Australia or Russia or anything like that. As cool as it would be and a great story, it's just I always want to stack the odds in my favor to win because that's what we're there to do first, you know, not vacation or anything else.
Matt Wiman, a veteran. What are your thoughts on him and the type of fight he brings to the octagon?
Yeah, I just got chills when he said that. You know, I've watched every single Ultimate Fighter. I was, you know, 12 when his season was on, and you know, I was definitely a fan of his too. That guy's a dog, man. He's gonna come forward. You know, I think maybe what he's lacked in evolution of his skills, he makes up for in toughness, grit, and veteran experience. You know, that being said, I think it's a perfect matchup for me. I think I do everything good that he does, but I think I do a lot of things better in some senses. You know, I think I'm a little more well-rounded, and I think my fight IQ will really pose a problem for him. I said it before, you know, to my coaches and some of my teammates when we were talking about the matchup. Some of the talk has been like, oh, man, it's a seasoned veteran. That's a tough fight. And it is. You know, every single fight in the UFC is a tough fight. But, you know, experience only comes into play if you fight non-composed. You know, I'm a composed fighter. I'm very big on thinking and being a smart fighter and staying calm. So the only way his experience is going to play a factor is if I let the moment get to me, you know. So other than that, you know, if we're both just as composed, his experience only means he has more miles on his body, you know. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it, probably to make myself feel better about fighting such a vet. But yeah, I think I pose a lot of problems for him. I know he's going to put pressure. He's going to come forward. He's going to be very, very tough. And he's not going to be a first round finish kind of guy. And I've had that in my head since we signed the contract. But I think once I put those things in my head, it's a perfect matchup for me, and I think I'll do a lot of things that can get him trouble.
He returned off a 5-year absence in his last fight. And watching that fight, observing, what he did in that fight, has he changed any, do you think?
It didn't look like it. But that being said, Luis Pena is a tough guy to fight because he's 6'3" at lightweight, or 6'4", I'm not sure, but he's tall and lanky, So, Matt Wiman has a tendency to run in with punches, and he always did. But he may be doing that because, Luis Pena was so tall and he couldn't find his range. So what I've tried to do is watch that fight, try and take things from that fight. But that being said, I've watched almost all of his fights, just once. I don't have to obsess or get too into it. But I'm preparing for him in his prime. That's what I need to do. That's what I want to do. But like you said, he's had a big layoff. And it's kind of funny is if you look at his record, in the last 10 years, he's fought 10 times. In the last 10 years, I fought 10 times. I fought 10 times in the last 3 years. So, the experience is there. But I think those long layoffs could really play in my favor, just staying active and all those things. And, he's been in the UFC before, so that's something that could play to his favor maybe. But, 5 years, it's almost like you've never been there. He came back out and had a really rough night. So it might play in my favor to have never been there. The nerves might be a little less than what he's going through. He might kind of feel like his job's on the line. And I always treat it like mine's on the line, but, I know I'm the new guy, and I get a chance to prove something good. He has to prove that he still has what it takes. So it is a lot of pressure for him, probably as much, if not more, than it is for me.
Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu, talk about how you ended up with that team.
Yeah, man, Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu in Wilmington, North Carolina. We're a little gym, and we've grown tremendously since I met, John Salter. I was training at a gym. I still do train there twice a week, Fitness Edge MMA in Myrtle Beach. That's where we were living, my wife and I. And my first introduction to John was the only UFC I had been to, up until I met him was in Boston. And he fought on that card when he was like my age. And I was rooting against him because he was fighting somebody from New Jersey, one of the Miller brothers or something. And I was not going to root for some guy from Alabama, And I'm from New Jersey, so I was, cheering against him. It must have been almost 10 years later or just about. And he was teaching a seminar at our gym in Myrtle Beach. And he came down and he absolutely just, it just blew my mind, the things that he was showing that I hadn't seen before. And I'd been training for 17 years at that point. And when I found out he was right down the road, it just made perfect sense to go visit. And after that, I got smashed. It was like my first day of jiu-jitsu, but I was a black belt. And it was just a no-brainer to keep going and keep going. And then my wife started making the trip. And, it was far enough from home where we got to move away and start kind of our life together. But it's close enough where I can still go back and train with my boxing coach, train with the great guys at Fitness Edge MMA, go see our in-laws and my family that are still down that way. It just made sense, The biggest selling point, is the jiu-jitsu, the gym vibe. All those things are fantastic, but it really is just, John as a person, as a fighter. I think it's really important for people like me at a young age getting into the sport, especially getting to the highest levels pretty young. I'm 26. I just turned 26. To have somebody like him, it's just a good person. It's if you end up like John, you've done something right in your career, in your life. He's just, what you see is what you get. He might even be better than he is on camera fighting. He's a great fighter. He gives great interviews, but he's probably a better person than that even, behind the scenes, which it's usually the opposite with a lot of athletes. So it just made sense to come be around people like that. And him, his wife, the whole gym, we're around great people with them. So it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, he's the type of guy that he is a coach, but he's also still fighting, and he's at the top of the game in Bellator. And having a guy like that added to the other coaches that you have, man, it's a good formula for success.
Absolutely. And between him and I have my boxing coach that I've always had down in Myrtle Beach, and who we just click, and I don't like to speak in absolutes about anything, so I'll never say somebody's the best, but I'm 100%, 1,000% sure that he's the best boxing coach for me. We have a really good chemistry, and now what we've changed, the past two camps is having the addition of Jeff Jimmo up at Jimmo in Charlotte, or in Gastonia, North Carolina, as our head coach. So now we go up there every single week. We train with those guys, and it's just been the perfect formula, man. Like I said, I have three great sets of eyes in the corner with my boxing coach, with John, and with Jeff Jimmo. It's three really geniuses in their areas, and I'm so confident with those guys. And that we've added in a strength and conditioning coach. I think John talked about it a little bit when he was on your show. Hudson Rose Athletics in Wilmington, North Carolina. Same thing, man. It's just you find these little masters of their crafts, And we walked in and we met him, and we walked out because he was just so excited to have two fighters walk in that wanted to train with him. And I said to John, I was like, we either just met a genius or a crazy person. And, after the first session, I was like, oh, we met a genius 100%. So all those guys, it's so nice, man. I don't have to do any of the work. I just have to show up and work. I don't have to think or plan or anything else. Just do what I'm told, And I think it's important, especially getting into the UFC at a young age, to have those guys.
You got a little over a month left, until you actually step into the octagon. What does the rest of your camp look like? What is the schedule? Are you going to just continue with what you're doing right now, or are you switching things up as you get closer to the fight?
Yeah, it's crazy is our schedule all year is pretty much the same. We just ramp the intensity maybe about 6 weeks out. So we call that fight camp, but really it's all year fight camp, maybe just take down the cardio just a tad. But we're just going to ramp up the next, 5.5 weeks. So it's going to be the same thing, man. It's a really busy time, especially when we get in fight camp. I'll be gone from home. I train like a day and a half here at the beginning of the week. Then I go to Myrtle Beach. I box and I spar down there. And I do jiu-jitsu down there with those guys too. I got great training partners there. Jordan Weeks, Cody Jones, just great guys to train with. And then after that, I get home. We hit strength and conditioning Thursday morning, and we go to Charlotte to train with Jeff Jimmo for 2 days up there. And then we're back at Salty Dog Saturday. So it's just hectic. But the work is the same. The intensity is a little different. We'll up the cardio and get into some fight simulation stuff toward the end. But, yeah, just working, and knowing and hoping and praying and believing that it'll all pay off.
No matter the result, in Washington, D.C., are you going to shut it down for this year? Because it looks like there's not many cards left, and it seems like they're all filled up. So when's the quickest you could turn around, if you're healthy, you know what I mean? Because that's what's absolutely the most important.
For sure. I've done quick turnarounds all throughout my career. I fought for the first couple pro fights. I was fighting every 8 weeks, Definitely something I'm willing to do, especially because, the more you fight, the more you get through your first contract, the more the pay will go up, and I know the UFC loves guys like that. So, we train all year, so I'll be ready, as soon as January hits. I don't drink. I don't party. I eat bad food once a week on my cheat day, once every 2 weeks, really. So, it'd be nice to have Christmas with my wife and our families, and, but that doesn't mean I'm going to take off. Christmas Day, I'll probably just have to get a run in because the gyms will be closed. But other than that, it'll be a normal week up until and up, right after. So if they need me in January, February, it does not matter. I'll be ready because, man, this is what I've always wanted to do my whole life. Now I get to do it. So that's something I keep telling myself every time I get nervous, every time I get run down, anything like that. Is like, man, this is what you always wanted. So, it's, hopefully it goes great fight, great performance. They're impressed and they want me right back. I'll take it.
The lightweight division, there's so many guys that are still fighting that are veterans, so-called legends of the sport. Even if they never held a title, they're still big names. Do you see any guys out there right now, I don't know, maybe a Jim Miller or somebody like that you would like to fight before they hang him up?
There's nobody specific, but I've always been a fan. Well, I won't say always, because when I was a kid, I didn't know how big I was going to grow up to be. But once I got into my later teen years, I've always loved 155 because that's my division, So I won't say there's anybody that I specifically would want to fight, but I feel like once you crack that top 20, it's all guys that I've always looked up to. So all of those are fights I would, love one day because, you're fighting your heroes or the guys you look up to, or even maybe some guys I didn't root for or didn't like, Nobody specific that comes to mind, but like the guys you mentioned, any of those sharing the cage would be crazy. I sat pretty much cage side at the Newark card and watched Jim Miller and Clay Guida fight. Either of those guys, they're legends. It's an honor to be able to even be in the same division as those guys. So guys like that, man, that'd be an honor. You saw, the kid that was on the episode of my episode of the Contender Series fought Joe Lowe's. That's a really cool thing to be able to share the cage with a legend like that. So anything like that down the line is something I definitely look forward to. And you see guys fighting later and later. So, if I have some success like I planned to early on, I could very well end up there with those guys.
Yeah, because it seems like they're doing that right now. the younger guys that are coming off the Contender Series, they're putting them against the veterans. Like you're actually in that situation right now with Matt Wiman. You want to elevate yourself, but you also want to get that name recognition on top of that, right? And whatever comes, I see a big future in you. Next year, 2020 should be a very active and exciting year for you after this fight gets over with. One last question before I let you go. Right now at this period of your career, this point of your career, do you consider yourself more of a martial artist or a prize fighter?
Yeah, that's a great question. Martial arts is for life, and there's no doubt in my mind that I got into this as a martial artist. I even did traditional martial arts along with jiu-jitsu growing up as a kid. I love martial arts, man. Jiu-jitsu, anything really, but jiu-jitsu is obviously near and dear to my heart. That being said, like, I love fighting. I really, really do. Not in like an emotional way where like I'm never going to be the guy that likes to get in there and wants to hurt somebody or anything like that. I love competing, so in the jiu-jitsu room, as a black belt, as a teacher, I'm a martial artist. But when it comes to my career, I'm a prize fighter. My job is to go out there and to compete and to make money for my family and to, leave something for them to be proud of, my wife, our kids one day, and things like that. But in the long haul, I'm going to be a martial artist. I'm going to die on the mats. I'm going to be teaching, coaching, training as long as my body will hold up, till the day I drop. So a martial artist for life, but while I'm in the UFC, while I'm competing, be a prize fighter as well, kind of both.
Your UFC career starts December 7th, UFC on ESPN 7. Washington, D.C. is the location. Thank you, Joe, for the time, man. Good luck on the fight and the rest of the year.
All right. Thank you so much, man. Looking forward to it.